Mexico is very important to the U.S. soybean industry. Mexico actually by countries is the second largest country that takes U.S. soybean exports. People are sometimes surprised by that. You know, China is obviously the biggest. The European Union, when you combine them all, is the second largest. But when you look at individual countries, Mexico is actually the second largest. And it's been a place where we've had consistently strong relationships between many exporters from the U.S. and many importers here. And the Mexican industry over the last 20 years has grown dramatically, and now it has very large pork production industry, poultry production industry, egg industry, dairy industry, a smaller but growing aquaculture industry. So there are many things, many industries here in Mexico that are great consumers of soy. Also, soybean oil is, you've got a big crushing industry here. Soybean oil is a very popular cooking oil in Mexico and is marketed very well. You've got some leading companies that do a great job marketing soy oil. So we're really pleased to be a partner with those people and help them support their programs. But Mexico, to specifically answer your question, Mexico is very important to the U.S. So soybeans are a very versatile crop. They have many purposes, but the main purposes are the soy protein component of the soybean. So about, by volume, roughly 80% of the soybean is the protein component, and the balance is oil. So the protein component goes mainly into livestock feed, so feeding pigs, feeding chickens, feeding a little bit into the dairy industry, and some into the aquaculture industry. A small portion would go into human foods if people were consuming tofu or other human-type protein, soy protein products. But most of the soy protein goes into animal feeds. Likewise, then the oil portion goes into cooking oil. Virtually all of that in Mexico is turned into some sort of a cooking oil product, whether it be a margarine or a shortening or a liquid cooking oil that you would pour out of a bottle. So it's used, most of the soybeans that come in here to Mexico are processed here by local companies and turned into meal and oil. The meal then goes to the livestock, and the oil is what you would fry your French fries or potato chips or those kind of things. So that is the NAFTA number 2, the new version of NAFTA. So from our perspective, when the U.S. entered into those negotiations with Mexico and Canada, one of the messages we tried to give was do no harm, because this has been a very good agreement, we think, both, I think, for Mexican soy importers and U.S. soy exporters and farmers. So our instruction or request to the U.S. government was do no harm. And we think they followed that. But we think they also made some improvements too. I think there are some new parts of the agreement in the area of biotechnology, in the area of SPS, sanitary, phytosanitary issues, some of the way that documents will be handled electronically. I think it was modernized in a good way. So we think that the negotiators did a good job and are hopeful that it will be ratified by all 3 countries soon. Yeah, I said this morning when we had our conference, I said it's always messy at this point in a trade agreement because the negotiators did a good job. They've reported out the good things that they did, but now the politicians all want to get involved. And that becomes a very messy process. So I wish we didn't have to watch it. I wish it could just get finished. So when we first heard that, we started making some quick calculations on how devastating that would be, both for the Mexican importers that rely upon the smooth supply chain of U.S. soy coming into Mexico, and our exporters, because we have shipments en route all the time. There are all these trains going back and forth, because most of it's by train. So it would have been very, very bad for soy trade if that had happened. And I think it would have been just another example of how the U.S., or it would have been something that called out the potential unreliability of the U.S. And that really is disappointing to us, because one of the things we're very proud of is the reliability of the U.S., and especially because we are next door neighbors to Mexico, so we need to be a reliable supplier. So we were very happy when the decision was made that not to do that for at least a year, and then I don't think it will happen. I think, you know, we all say things in frustration. We all get upset about something and say, well, maybe I should do this. And then we never really intend to do it, but we still make that statement for effect. I chalk that up to what President Trump was doing. You know, I have no way of knowing for sure, but I think he must have made that statement because he was very frustrated with the problem we have with all of the, you know, at the border. But interrupting commerce and standing in the way of our good supply partnership with Mexico would not have helped that. So we're glad it's turning out the way it is.